I stopped early. Oh, I don't know how. See, this is what happens. This is why I feel like forever since we last started. I don't know what the heck was that. I don't like it. We had 2 bars left.
I wasn't going to say nothing. It is what it is. You know what I mean?
It is, but you know, you tune back in the morning. The title is usual, episode 207. I'm your host, as usual, Jarrett, Chief Revenue Officer at Outside the Box Digital. And you know, I got my brother, my brethren, your favorite CEO, Cuzzo. What is the vibes, baby?
Listen, man. Here. Happy to be here, man. I gotta just woosah, you know what I'm saying? Like, listen, ladies and gentlemen, we back. You know what I mean? I gotta say this, through all in all, it is one of my favorite days of the week.
Pod day, y'all.
Pod day, you understand? So it is one of my favorite days of the week. So you know what? Anything and everything that we going through gets washed away because it's pod day. So it's time to get back to work and do what we do best, which is promote for the culture. But with that said, we can't have the Triangle Offense without the third member of the Triangle Offense. So you heard my cousin. Now I got to introduce the third member of the Triangle Offense to make this offensive strategy complete. Nadege, aka the balance, to bring it on and level out this testosterone that we got going on between us. You know what I'm saying?
You already know what it is. I'm here to balance it all out. But not just that, you know, I'm here for the ladies shouting us out. I'm having a great day. I'll be honest. Like, now that I'm here chat with y'all, you know, it's pod day, woosah on it, and we're going to have a great convo. So, Chadeo, start us off. You know what it is.
I mean, you know, I just, like always, ladies and gentlemen, G&T, grateful and thankful. The message is the same. And I'm just, you know, over the weekend, we've had a lot of people reach out to us. Once again, positive affirmations, messages, words of encouragement, right? We actually got a text message from a young brother that told us by listening to our show, he changed his life around, went and got a good career. You know, he's in school and he's doing his thing. And I'm telling you guys right now, when we say G&T, that's what we do it for. That's the impact over the metrics.
Let's go.
That is the impact over the metrics. I don't care how many download numbers we got. I don't care how many streams we got. When we are able to change somebody's life, the course of their life, which eventually changes the course of their friends and their families' lives, that is why we do it. So G&T, shout out to all the people, even if you haven't reached out to us, but shout out to all the people that take value and have found value from this show and have used that information to change your life. We're grateful and thankful for you guys. That's it, man. G&T all in one shot, man.
I be in the random spots and get the. Yeah. I saw that episode with that. I'm like, what the? Yeah. You saw that? Then why you ain't like? No, I saw it though, and I wrote it down, and I was like, yeah, I could get with that.
Yeah,
but you already know, man. We got a great episode today. Before we introduce this brother, this amazing brother, man, we're gonna have a great conversation. Shout out to our distribution partners, the Live Podcast Network, the first woman-owned, black-owned podcast network. So if you want more content, like More Than a Title, make sure you take out your phone, download the app, scan the QR code, and get a lot of this black excellence that's on the platform. So you know what it is, y'all. So we don't talk it, we walk it, we rocking with them. Shout out to Angel Olivas and the entire team. What a time to be alive, man. We on the building, baby. Gotta shout out.
You know what, man? I think that's I'm gonna have to coin that phrase, because with everything that's going on right now, it is what a time to be alive. That's a hell of a statement. Wow. I ain't even gonna hold you. Like, what a time to be alive. You know, so
message
for sure.
You already know. With that being said,
let's start the show.
Rocket. So first of all, let's do it before I give you the intro of this brother, man. We've had the pleasure of meeting this brother at Blackleaf, right? And then we also had a pleasure of interviewing one of his members on the team, Natalie. Shout out to Natalie. She was one of our early episodes, man. She was a pivotal to. We was going through some stuff, and Natalie was the glue there, and she helped us do a lot of things, man. So
she's our glue too. Yeah, she's our glue.
She's the glue, yo. She just got the form. She send me the link, send me this. So shout out to Nat. Love you, sis. But we had the pleasure of meeting this brother. She speaks so highly of you. First time I met her, she spoke highly of you, brother. We sitting there eating lunch in Little Italy. She was telling me all about the company, telling me everything that you guys are doing. So to have you on the show, this is a long time coming, brother. So we appreciate you, and let's let the people know, man. So this brother is the founder and CEO of Pocstock, which is a global diversity media platform dedicated to authentically representing people of color through powerful stock photography, video, and illustration. Him and his team partner with Fortune 500 companies and top ad agencies to create inclusive, relevant content and leave vital conversation around diversity and representation. He's a true serial entrepreneur. He brings over 2 decades of experience in building tech-driven solutions and leading creative ventures. Before launching Pocstock, he founded WebSignia, award-winning digital agency behind an innovative work for brands like Cartoon Network, Pfizer, PepsiCo, the 9/11 Memorial, and more. From launching his first business at 16 to owning a record label, a social network, a video game company, and even gaining corporate experience at firms like Morgan Stanley and Chase, this brother's journey is nothing short of remarkable. He's born in Barbados, raised in Brooklyn, and he's here to bring you his story firsthand. You guys have seen him in Black Week.
Boom.
You guys have seen him at the conferences. You
Boom.
guys seen him in the boardroom. You
Boom.
see him in the office putting on for the culture every single day. Let's introduce our brother, Mr. Steve Jones, CEO of Pocstock, y'all.
Let's go. I love that, man. I love that energy.
Come on, man. You
I
deserve
can
that.
retire now. I appreciate y'all.
Hold on. I just found out something new because, like, ladies and gentlemen, we have met Steve before. We was at Black Week, just having a phenomenal time, getting to know each other and developing a relationship. I did not know you had a record label, Steve. We gonna talk about Steve. We gonna talk.
Back in the day.
You get away from that.
Back
Let's
in
go.
the day. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You got Boris?
Because Cuzzo got bars. Cuzzo always got bars ready to go, Steve.
Right now on the clip, one in the chamber.
Look, we could take that offline. We could take that offline.
So I just realized something. So let's start it off. We like to start off the show early influences and stuff like that. So Cuzzo said born in Barbados, right? Born in Barbados.
Yes, sir.
Let's walk through the early life, your early stages in life, being raised on a Caribbean island, sunshine and 24/7. That, you know what I mean? Like, don't worry, be happy attitude. Let's walk through like early Steve Jones days, man. Like, what's that about? Talk to us about that.
Oh man. So I was born in Barbados, but I was raised in Brooklyn.
So
I was raised in Bed-Stuy. I came to the States when I was 6 years old. So I was born there, but you know, I spent most of my life here in the US. And you know, Barbados is a culture that's really about education, excellence, about culture and family. And a lot of what I learned when I came here was that, you know, I came here right before crack blew up Brooklyn. Like, you know, when our block parties were still like fun places to go before all of the, you know, all of that came in after Reaganomics. But it was really a chill place to come, you know, and grow. And, you know, I was the smarty-yard little kid, you know. I was the one who was always tinkering, always figuring things out, always taking my toys apart, breaking them, you know, fiddling and tinkering and taking apart the VCR, you know, for all the Gen Zers. That's before streaming, there was DVD. Before that, there was VCR. So,
in fact, I remember VCRs. I'm right now.
So, you know, taking apart all the electronics, putting them together, and building my own things was my way. So, I've always been trying to remake the world the way I want it. So that's really early. Yeah.
Remake the world. How about Mama Love and Pop's influence? How was your parents?
So my mom was an entrepreneur. She was a baker, you know, and that was in the bloodstream. You know, my pops was not there. You know the story. He was around, but he wasn't in the household. You know what I mean? He was around. He came back and forth. You know, good dude. But you know, my mom was really like the hardworking, you know, she was the one who said, no matter, you know, we didn't have a lot of money, you know, coming from the islands. I'm 8 of 9. And she was the type to instill, no matter what your income level, you still got to take care of yourself. It's no reason to keep your house dirty, no reason to be out here being disrespectful just because you don't have money in your pocket. Like, she instilled that, you know, sense of, you know, not excellence per se, but just being your best self, no matter what your financial circumstances are. Because, you know, people around us, you know, when they're projects, you know, people, you know, doing what they do. And the reason why they say they're doing it is because finances, right? They're doing what they got to do. I'm not knocking anybody, but my mother said the opposite. Like, you could do whatever you need to do, no matter, you know, if you got $1, you know, you made it out of 15 cents, that still is good. You know what I mean?
No, at the same time. He was like, whoa, he cooking.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
No,
So go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna ask, like now going from being a child, like moving to your teenage years, like you started a business as a teenager. Like, what is that like, having that entrepreneurial drive at such a young age?
Yeah, like I said, it was in my bloodstream, but my mother disappeared when I was 14. So she left the house, she went on a job interview, and we never saw her again at 14. So then the family kind of split up and everybody kind of went their own way. My older sister, Marcia, kind of, looked out for me. And when she moved out, she took me in. And when she moved out, she left me her apartment. So I had to pay for it, right? So I had to pay rent. So I was out at the South Street Seaport, airbrushing. I'm an artist, so I can draw, I can sculpt, paint, you name it, right? So anything I do is usually centered around some form of being creative. And so I'd be down there airbrushing, Mickey Mouse and all kind of designs on people, all the tourist jeans and stuff. And, that's how I was able to maintain until I was able to get a job. One of my first jobs, I was working on Wall Street and, in corporate. And then that's when I got into the music industry during that time. But yeah, so the way I grew up, you do what you got to do. You know what I mean? Like you do whatever you got to do. And some people go one way, some people go another. I chose to use my creativity and my art, to sustain myself. But yeah, that was it. It wasn't like I thought about it. It was just, how am I going to maintain this apartment at 16?
Yeah. I don't want us to go past that really quickly, because I actually, be honest with you, I was the only child for a long time, right, from my mother's side. So I don't really know what it is to have like I have a lot of siblings now. Papa was a Rolling Stone, homie.
That is home.
This is home. But for me, like most urban people, mom is everything. You understand what I'm saying? I wanted to say I respect the fact that you said dad was a good dude, even though he wasn't in the household, because I want to touch on that, because a lot of us are, single parents as far as fathers, right? And just because we're not engaged in an active relationship with the mothers, we are still active parents. So I want to say I appreciate the fact that you gave your father his flowers by saying, even though he didn't live with us, he's still a good dude, and he did what he could. Because me and Cuzzo kind of live that life right now. You understand what I'm saying? We're both, active parents to our boys and things of that nature that are not actively involved in the relationships with their moms, but we try to be there for everything. So, I wanted to say thank you, that the fact that you kind of acknowledge that, because it's rare sometimes when people be like, yo, dad wasn't, he didn't live with us, but nah, dad was a good dude. You don't get that a lot. Moms always get flowers, but, for fathers, man, we get socks.
Yeah, I mean,
But that's what
if we're lucky, we get socks for Father's Day.
No, not that. We're going to talk.
Hold on, Steve. Am I lying, though? Mother's Day is crazy. Mother's Day, you break the bank, flowers, dinners, all this shit. Father's Day is like, yo, here's a clean pair of socks.
Yeah, I mean, but I mean, rightfully so that mothers get their flowers the way they get them. But for us, all the stereotypes about Black men and not being there for their kids, and all the stereotypes that we have to live with, and most of it is not true. Meaning that if you look at every other culture, Black men, in terms of being present for their kids, in terms of spending quality time, whether it's changing, diapers, feeding, picking up from school, we exceed that quality time over any other culture. Right? Where we don't, rate as high is with marriage. So we don't generally marry the women culturally.
Yeah.
A lot of us do. I'm married to my wife. We have 5 kids. That's fine. But for those who don't, that's where the stereotype comes from, the relationship with the mother. Right? So that is disproportionately lower than other cultures. But in terms of us being there for our kids what was it? The CDC did a report on fatherhood, and you should see the numbers, like 87% across 70 to 80 something percent across every category that matters with interactions between the father and the kid. It's
Talk about it. But I do, and that's a great point. But I do want to talk about, because I can't fathom what you were saying, bro. You said mom went on a job interview, 14 years old. She didn't come back, and you still end up going the path, right? So we have a saying here: you got to choose to be him.
Yeah.
You have to choose to be him in your life, but that's a big burden, bro. So like, just tell us about, like, walk us through the mindset to still do that, because to still choose to be him after dealing with you dealt with, you know, the hand you were dealt, that's a lot, brother.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, if I'm saying that that's my origin story, then you know it wasn't like an easy journey, and I didn't just wind up where I'm at out of just not going through. I made mistakes. I went through the same ups and downs everybody else goes through. You know, I had plenty of hard times. You know, times where I didn't have two nickels to rub together. Like, you know, that's why I appreciate every day that I wake up, everything that I get. I appreciate every blessing that I get. I am grateful and thankful just to be here with you brothers, right? You know, because I know a lot of people I grew up with didn't make it through the struggle, you know what I mean, and did not come out in a positive way. So, you know, damn right, I love the life I live, because I went from negative to positive, and it's all, you know what I mean. That's the anthem for my life right there. But yeah, it was tough, you know, but I had a support system. I had my older sister, Marcia, like I said, she would look out for me. I had all my boys, when I would go to their house, they knew I didn't have, you know, parents. So they became my surrogate mother and father. So I would go over to my boy Dre's house, and, you know, his mom, and he didn't even have to be home. His parents would just let me in. I'd just go in, kick it like I was part of the family. Like, they welcomed me into their family. My boy Suave, his mother and pops did the same thing. So it was always, it was like, there was always people who kept me from falling into the cracks, because at that age, I knew I was different than people, but I didn't think I was better than anybody. So I didn't, you know what I mean? So at the same time, I'm out there, let's say I'm out there standing on the block with the older people, like, why are you out here standing with them? You're going to be somebody. They're not going to, and I couldn't see the difference. Like, I couldn't see that. I knew something else was out there, but I didn't know that I was going to eventually find it for myself, because you look around, everybody's just doing the same thing. Everybody's like trying to feed their families, trying to see the next day. And, you know, what we call ducking the jakes back in the day. Like, it was just like, you know what I mean? Like, it was real. Like Bed-Stuy, Crown Heights, it was real. So growing up in that environment, it's like, you don't know if you're going to make it. You know what I mean? You hope, you wish, you do what you got to do, but you know, it was a struggle. But you know, all of that helped me to not fall apart today when I deal with the things that I'm dealing with now. Like, if I went through my day or week and tell you all the things that I'm dealing with right now, people be like, how can you even still put a smile on your face with all of the stress, all of the load you carry? Like, all of those, my life prepared me to be in tough moments like this, you know, and be able to be clear-minded and still stay positive and know that if I made it through that, I can make it through this.
Yeah.
That's
Before we go any further, I want to give a shout out to what we like to call the village, Steve. That is tentatively the village, right? The village. I probably spent more time in other people's house, cause I used to damn near live in Chad here again. Just open the door. Just come on in. I'm telling you, like, that is called the village. I think we are missing that. Yeah. Right. Steve, I think in this generation, we are missing that village, right? Where families and people that you knew actually cared about the well-being of other children. If they seen you doing something wrong, they snatch you up. Yo, what you doing, man? You know, you understand? Like, nowadays, you know, you can't touch nobody's kid. It's a whole different situation. If kids is in somebody's house, it turns into a whole different situation. But you see the difference in the upbringing mentally of our generation and how we process, right? Times that we're going through that are not as easy, and these new generations and how they process trauma and how they process things. It's a complete different story. So shout out to the village that took the time to see something in you, because that is the key to helping change a kid's life, right? Change the trajectory of what you're gonna do with yourself, because you have people all around you showing you that love. You know, so shout out to your village, man.
Speaking of the village, what's one of the best? What's the best gem or something that you got from the village, from Suave mom or pops or something? What's one piece of game they gave you? Say, yeah, I'm keeping this with me. What's up with that?
It's not necessarily just from them, but you know, it's something that I do in life in general. Like, it's people always used to say when I grow up, the same people you meet on the way up are the same people you meet on the way down. I didn't understand that until I actually got up, right? And I see how, like when I worked in corporate, people would ask, kind of look at me with the, with a side eye, like, why are you talking to the janitor? I'm sitting there laughing and joking with the janitor, even though I'm like, had to cut him off. Like, yo, I need to go in this meeting with the VP now. Like, and to me, it was no difference. If you're a good person, you're a good person. And I rock with you like that. Right. So, but people would say, the people you meet on the way up are the same people you meet on the way down. And that always sticks with me anytime I meet anybody. I don't look at anybody based on, how much money they have. I sit around millionaires. I sit around billionaires sometimes. I sit around people who I grew up with who still may or may not have 2 nickels to rub together. And as long as you're a good person, I don't care any of your details. If you're good, we can connect, right? Like you, brother. Message. From the first second I met y'all, the energy was just, it was real. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I wish y'all all the success because you guys are 2 real dudes with all this energy that you pump into any atmosphere. Like you transform your environment whenever you go into it. You guys are not a product of your environment. Your environment is a product of you. So when you go in those spaces, message, you bring that energy, right? So, for me, if I would have said, I'm here to meet so-and-so, and I didn't take you guys and say, oh, like you guys are all like this. You guys are taking off, right? So imagine a year ago where you were. If I wouldn't have just took the time to connect, we wouldn't be here today, right? Right. So imagine one day, Pocstock doesn't work out. I need a job. More than the title is like the next biggest thing around the globe. I'm like, yo, can you hook me up with a job? Can I be your engineer? You know what I mean? Like, you never know who you're gonna meet. Some people that I met as A&Rs and interns went on to become VPs and CEOs and vice versa. You know what I mean? So you never know who you're gonna meet. Be kind to everybody. Be respectful to everybody.
Very real.
We talk about we go into the story. We actually just had Simon from CEO of Can. I worked with him in Can. I was a sales exec. He was the guy that was giving out the trophies. I had no clue what the hell that role was.
Yeah.
No clue what that role was. I didn't even know what Can did. I'm gonna keep it all the way around. I'm thinking it was the film festival. I went in advertising, end up loving this shit. But we end up bonding, like you said, just seeing them every day. Yo, what's going on, family? You good? Breakfast, boom, boom, coffee together. What's up? You in the elevator together. You say a couple of words, you saw the game. And then now to become the CEO. Like, you feel me? You never know who people are, man. So that's real talk, man. What you say, it really resonated. I know you about to say something. You about to jump in. That shit was real. That shit hit home.
Yeah. I mean, I've had that play out in my life so many times.
My fault, Steve.
They love calling him IT.
Yeah.
That's his brother for real, man. That's our number one dude on Twitch, man. But Polo, come on, you gotta stop with the iced tea shit.
We're gonna do sponsorship. Some iced tea brands are gonna come up, and that's what's gonna come. I'm claiming.
Why not? Put it out in the universe. Why not?
I love it.
Embrace it.
So, Steve, I want to hear, about the corporate life. You've been in the game for 20 years across the board, from like tech, music, gaming. Like, how did those various experiences build up your purpose-driven media company? Like, how did you get, challenge even the status quo?
I think I'm a disruptor by nature. So I'm always trying to break and fix stuff. And I wound up in corporate America because I need, obviously points in time in my life where I just needed a job. I needed to work somewhere. And corporate is where you go to have steady paycheck and be safe and comfortable and those things. But every corporate job I've had, I've always tried to push the boundaries beyond the job. And some of it worked and most of it didn't. Meaning, if I just showed up and did what they needed me to do, which was usually easy stuff, it was usually good. But when I started to innovate, I started to push beyond those things. I always wound up in a box. I always wound up as, standing out in a way where they don't want you to stand out. And, my last corporate job was probably 20 years ago. And I haven't looked back since because it doesn't make me feel like I'm living into my purpose when I'm in those spaces. It makes me feel like, I don't know. Like I have to shrink myself, and there's a lot of folks who can navigate those spaces really well, and I hats off to them. But for me, I see a box, I want to break it. I want to see what's on the other side of it. I want to see, is this the best way to do it? Could it be more efficient if we did it this way? And always hearing, oh, well, that's the way we've always done it. Oh, we don't need all, you know what I mean? Like hearing that, like I can't do it. Like I'm here to, it might sound a little, arrogant, but I want to make an impact in the whole world. Like what you guys were saying before, that's how I live my life, like impact. Whenever somebody says, Pocstock did this for me, Steve Jones, I heard you say this and it helped change I live for that. Like I live for that. Like that is such a rewarding feeling to feel that you are doing something that matters.
Like, no, clock that. That is amazing. So I want to know, like, what was that like aha moment for you where you felt there was a gap in the market for, people like us, and how do you feel like you contribute in filling it?
Oh, well, I mentioned I'm a father of 5, and that's going to tie into something I'm going to say later, which is when in my last company was a digital agency. So we did digital campaigns and we created branding and brochures and websites, you name it, for a lot of brands. And at some point they needed a little bit more focus on communicating with multicultural audiences, which are generally people of color and different ethnicities, races, backgrounds, you name it. And trying to find imagery that looked like us, that didn't make us look, goofy or in a negative way, or like it was very hard to find non-cheesy images of us. And here's where here's the moment where I remember, like it was yesterday. I was doing a website for a potential client, and back then, instead of just giving clients a contract, I would kind of give them a mock-up of my vision for them. And they were sold on the vision. We were sitting there looking for imagery. We pulled up one of the sites, typed in Black businessman or something, and the website that I was using, still around, one of the biggest sites in the world, stock photography sites in the world, they had an image of a Black man in a business suit at a bar with lines of cocaine on the table.
No way. No way.
No.
No way. I wish I got it.
Hell no. No.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. I was embarrassed. Like I was embarrassed. Like I tried to click away. Like it was like, to have that put out there as that's what we should, the image of us and what people think of us. Like I was embarrassed. Like quite frankly, that was like the radioactive spider bit me, and I just became Peter Parker became Spider-Man on that day, because I said, I can't have the world looking at us like that. Like I was embarrassed, not just for the site or whoever took the image, but the fact that if I wouldn't have flagged it, people would have just went by it like, okay, that's just what Black people do. And I'm like, that's not what we do, right? I'm looking at the screen. I see 3 people, 4, including myself, that are CEOs. This is if you want to see an image of a CEO, look at the screen. Like this is what the imagery should reflect. You want to see the image of an engineer, you should not be able to tell which one of us is CEO, which is an engineer, which one of us likes to ski, which one of us likes to jet ski, which one of us owns a house in the Hamptons. Like you should not be able to look at the screen and by the pigmentation or the gender be able to say this one does and that one does. You should not be able to stereotype us that way. Right. So that was the moment that I realized that I have to do something about this. And that was about maybe 15 years ago. And
what is the first step? So you got the aha moment. Like, what is the market research that goes into that? Like, and you're going against the major players, the D's of the world, right? They got major budget, all of this stuff, right? Like, please walk us through what did that look like to get it to go to market?
So I was a little arrogant at the time, so I thought I could just go pull an off-the-shelf software, throw some photos of us up there. Yeah. I did that, and I put it together in beta mode, and it was horrible. So I decided not to launch it because it would not have helped solve the problem. right? The problem is a global problem. We're literally about 92% of the global population. The problem had to be solved in a global way, right? So putting up a little off the shelf software with 1,000 images would not have been enough to address the problem at scale. So I did some market research. I found some other Black-owned companies who were trying to solve the problem. I saw they had anywhere between 1,000 and 5,000 images. So I knew we had to get into the millions in order to really scale. Some of the larger companies have like 400 or 500 million images, right? So I knew we had to have at least 10% of that to really be considered impact to the global industry. So that's what I did. I did market research. I did plenty of searching to see who is addressing the issue, how they're addressing it, is it effective? Because if somebody was solving the problem, I wouldn't have started the company. But when I saw that everything that people thought was a solution just had to do with skin tone, I'm like, what about all the other attributes of us? What about the whole human that is Black, that is Latino, that is that's broader Hispanic, that is Native American? Like, what about the whole human being? Like, we're more than just our outfits and our skin tones. Like, it's like no one was really digging deep into what makes someone from New York that's Black look a certain way, someone from LA, from Detroit, from South Africa. Like, we're all part of the same global tribe, but we're different. We show up different, right? You take we look at where all of the 50% of the Black people in America in the South, but if you look at all those states, they still show up differently, right? They dress differently. We have different cultures, different foods we like we have things in common, but nobody took the time to really look at all of those little nuances. They just looked at, oh, he's dark skinned, put him in a black box.
They just black box. There's no segmentation, none of that shit.
None. So nobody took a chance. Nobody took the time to really get to know us. So that's really what we did when we started Pocstock. We took time to get to know us in a cultural, relevant, authentic way. So that's one of the, even still at scale, even though we've been around 5 years, we made sure to bake that into our entire ethos. So as we grow, that's always a part of who we are.
Can I ask you a real question?
Before you go into the question, I just want to comment, because before you go into the question, I just want to comment. See, we have done 200 plus episodes, and there are stories sometimes that shock us. Like, we've heard stories that like, no way, but I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, this is top 3 for me. Like, I would have never thought that you would say what you just said. Like, that has completely blown my mind. I thought you were gonna say a Black man working with a white guy, like standing over him, like supervision or something like that. Something as far as like a Black guy working, but like with a white man showing that he's still supervising. But lines of cocaine, I mean, like, I'm like flabbergasted. Like, I don't even understand like who developed that. And I know it's a chain of command of getting these images approved and then put onto the website to represent the brand. I'm just thinking like every person in charge that had to approve that thought that shit was okay. Like, that is mind blowing. I'm sorry. Like, that's crazy.
Even more. We could get into this later. So
yeah,
that's the stuff that we don't see. Imagine what AI is doing and what they think about us.
Yeah.
The people that programming these AI programs are not us for.
Yeah. Well, AI is doing the same exact things that those stock companies did, because AI relies on data, right? So
there it goes.
They went to these large stock libraries, pulled all of that content to use as training data so they can learn how to generate images of us. And a lot of that data already has the biases built into it, all the stereotypes built into it. So, I mean, that's another mission that we're on right now. We're trying to make sure that AI does not repeat those mistakes. So we're working with AI companies now to supply them with images and data that includes all of those nuances that the other companies never thought about, right? So when they go to generate an image of a Black woman, yes, right now AI can get skin tones relatively okay, but they don't have enough data to get the full range of understanding how to replicate us, our dances, our movements, it's getting better. every day you look at AI, it's the worst version of AI you're ever going to see, because it's only going to get better, right? That's the way I look at it. And how it gets better is because companies like Pocstock are helping them with, training data and guidance. And I sit on boards and advisory groups to make sure these companies have, just an understanding that, hey, you need to think about us in a different way, than you've been thinking about. Each culture is different, so you have to think about each culture in a different way if you want them to show up authentically in your product. So it's really been interesting to see them make those mistakes for 30 years in advertising and marketing, and turn around and start doing the same exact thing in AI.
That's crazy.
Talk about history repeating itself.
Yeah, not on our watch though.
Period.
Not on our watch. We're not doing that.
That's what I was gonna ask you before, because asked the question was like what initial investment did you have? You had the aha moment. What did it take to get off the ground? Because we have to learn, like you said, you have to learn the different cultures and things like that. That is costly. That's a lot of, learning different iterations of the business. Like, what did it start with? What was like one of the toughest times and stuff like that? Like, walk us through that, because we understand it.
Yeah, I mean, I since it wasn't my first rodeo at launching a company, I knew how to put the scaffolding in place, which is like the empty boxes that you put in place that knowing one day you're going to need to fill it in. So we were self-funded. My partner, Deshaun, and I had two other co-founders at the time. One helped build the platform. The other helped seed the library with our first set of imagery. But yeah, we knew where we wanted to go. So we're not a small business. We're a startup, right? So it's a different approach to building a global venture, right? So you put the pieces in place, then you build them. And that's what we're doing. So it's one of those things that, it took a lot of effort. It took a lot of people. We have over 200 investors. We have 3,000 creators across 65 countries. We have a team of about 30 people working all the time on this thing. It takes a village. Pocstock would not be where we are if we did not have a group of people who really believe that this work is worthwhile. And no matter what's going on in the world right now, people still ride with us.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. And like you said it before, like Pocstock is more than just like stock images. It's a movement. So how do you define that movement, and what does success look like beyond these downloads and the client rosters?
So impact, really. So when we look out and we see things changing, so let's say one day, unfortunately, another George Floyd happens, right? Let's say that something tragic like that were to happen. And if we see people look at that person who's the victim as a victim, and not going through their history and saying this is what they did as a teenager, and smearing them to make them less than human, to justify what happened to them. When we see things like that change, we know that the work has moved well beyond what our capabilities are and what our impact is, right? So one of the things we want to do is show people in a positive light. We're not trying to say one race or one group is better or worse. We're trying to say you can find beauty in everything and everyone. You can find positivity in everything and everyone. And we're just trying to amplify that, because for many years, all the negativity is what shines through. And in the positive images of George Floyd holding his daughter, I was so happy to see those images surface, and not some high school mugshot or something like that show up, right? So whenever we can be shown as our whole human self, and that seems like an odd thing to ask for, right? Like that's an odd thing to aspire to, but but that's really it. In media, it influences almost everything we think about. When we see something cool in a video, in a movie, if we think we know about, if you live in Brooklyn, you think you know anything about Compton, but you've never been there. It's through the music, it's through the videos. Like the imagery influences how people think about us. Imagine the amount of, and I'm never gonna put down, gangster hip hop, because I grew up on it, right? But imagine how much of that got flooded into the marketplace, and that's how the world thinks of all of us, not just a segment, but all of us, right? Imagine if someone flooded the world with positive imagery. Black men with their kids, you know, Black women CEOs, you know, Hispanic doctors and CEOs. And imagine if the world was flooded with all these imagery and people stop clutching their purses when they see you, because they're like, wow, I'm used to seeing Black people successful. Not just rappers with yachts and flashing nuts, but I'm talking true successful, like true images of everyday success. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what if the world was filled with those images? How would that shape the world's perspective on us?
Well, I mean, you know, real quick, you know, we're not going to get into the political climate of things, but you already know that's never going to happen. Number one, because we don't own most of these major agencies that are in charge of or have the ability to put the imagery forward, put the message forward, whatever narrative they choose, they want to put out into, you know, the news cycle. We don't control these, unfortunately, right? So that's why it's such an uphill battle for us to be able to get these images out there, because they understand something which is very inert to us coming to this country, right? Education is key. Education is key.
Yep.
That's why with the slaves, there was a lot of things that would get you beat, would get you whipped, but not a lot of things that would get you killed because you were property. That owner wanted to make their money worth from you. But learning how to read and write, you see, educating yourself, see, that would get you killed, because they understood that the more educated we are, the less that we're going to tolerate things that we know are wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So it, like you said, just think about it. It would be common sense, right? If the world had a better perception of us, then they would treat us differently. If the world had better knowledge at our culture and our contributions to the world, then we would be treated differently. But that's why they are controlling the narrative the way they are. That's why they're trying to slowly erase our history and change, right? And change what's taught about us, because they know that the education is key. Dr. Matthew knows. It was Dr. Matthew knows, right, Cousin? The quote that we love. So I think Dr. Matthew knows said it when we had him on the show, when he was saying we have to be very careful that history doesn't become his story.
His story.
Is your microphone leaking? What is this sound?
I don't.
Sound like a tire leaking.
Hey, is your microphone leaking, girl? You the microphone.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna be honest with you. If you want my honest opinion, I think it's the world trying to stop our message from getting out in a clear form. Yeah. Man, how convenient that we're talking about what we're talking about and we're experiencing technical difficulties like that. And again, Steve, in 200 and something episodes, we never had that air come on like that as many times as it just did. So how could that be a coincidence? I'm just saying, like, I'm not, you know, I'm
let him hear the truth. We got a question too. We got a question too from YouTube, Steve.
Yeah.
Where did you get investors from? He said, was it Kickstarter? They just wanted to know that. And then Dot also says somebody passed gas, possibly you, Chad. Because you were talking.
He didn't say me. Why would you?
No, because you were talking. You know, I was on mute.
He didn't say me, because though that's crazy.
No, I said possible. I was on mute, but it's all
Steve,
good.
just so you know, him and Dot are best friends, so that's like a biased thing. That's his best fucking friend. So for him to throw me under the bus, of course he's gonna do that, right? Give him full context of the conversation.
Where I'm from, if you smelt it, you dealt it. So I don't know. But yeah, I mean, before I get into the investor thing, I was just gonna say that what you're talking about is real. But if I flip it on the other side, I don't only look at how other people look at us. I look at how we look at ourselves.
Right.
Right. So how we are quick to like be afraid of each other, skeptic of each other, very judgmental and critical of each other at times. Not everybody, but at times, right? Where in moments like now, it calls for us to come together, the Target boycotts, things like that. You see the power of just doing that. The economic, we contribute $1 trillion a year to this economy, right? What if we took 10% of that trillion and spread it around with Black-owned businesses, Black communities? Imagine the impact that would have for generations to come, right? So it's not just that we want to worry about, you know, validation and acceptance of other people. We need to then start now doing this for ourselves, right? We need to start supporting each other. Businesses, endeavors, showing up for each other. Like we met at Black Week, we showed up for Black Week. You know, we met there. I'm showing up for your podcast. You showed up for me. You showed up for our team. Like, you guys have showed plenty, you know what I mean? Like, you guys live that, you know what I mean? I've seen it. And if more of us do that, inspire more of us to just do it, even if it's, you know, something you just do out of habit. Like, I can't tell you how much shea butter and books I've bought from Black people, just to support their business. You know what I mean? Like,
No, same here. I got every flavor. I'm moisturized for the rest of my life.
I'm saying, but that's how you support their businesses. And you know, this is, you know, we didn't all grow up. This is the first generation of a lot of us having actual wealth, right? So we have to make sure that more of us get to experience what that's like. More Black kids get to experience what it's like to have a space where you don't have a need, where you don't have a want, where you can just be comfortable. You don't have to be stressed out all the time. Like, it's just, don't get me started on this. Don't get me started. This is why I do what I do.
Yeah.
Impact. I want people to feel that impact.
But when you create impact, though, the problem is a lot of times we don't get the same support from the community when it's great impact. If it's negative impact, we put a different level of, you know what I'm saying? We put a different level of energy into it. Like, for instance, like, we do great impact, and there's a lot of times, I'm gonna keep it honest with you. We've been in business for 3 years, and we do it for the community. We've never done business with a Black company.
Right.
Yeah,
but keep in mind, I
you know what I'm going with it, Steve. You know what I'm saying?
I know exactly where you're going with it. I got to put it this way, and this is not being critical of my folks, right? So,
big bro,
Black people are new to certain things, right? Where African Americans are new to certain things, new to owning businesses, new to having this many Black billionaires in this period of time, new to having a Black president, a Black vice president, new to having wealth, new to be getting promoted into certain spaces, new to being invited in certain conversations, new to having more than one Black actor who's popular at one time. Like, there's a lot that we're experiencing that's brand new, right? And you got to give Black people some grace, right? Because
that's real.
If we, who are, you 3 years, I'm 5 years into Pocstock, we track how many Black vendors we use. We make sure to maintain a high percentage of any dollar that comes into Pocstock, and not just Black, people of color in general. We make sure that a certain amount of our spend goes back out to certain businesses. Now, you still got to be good. You know, you still got to be good at what you do. You got to be timely. You got to deliver. When we're not just, you know, but what happens if you make a mistake? We're not saying, hey, we never mess with. We'll say, here's how you performed relative to industry standard. Here's where you can fix it. And some people adjust, some people won't. The people who won't, we can't do business with, because we got to maintain a certain standard of excellence.
Message.
Just because you're Black owned doesn't mean you don't deliver at the highest level. Sometimes it just means you didn't get the opportunity yet. Right. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times we're working on big corporate projects. We're pulling in people where this is their first commercial shoot. Right. So a lot of these corporations will go to the same people because those are the people who have experience. And you say, how do you get the experience if nobody ever gives you a shot? Right. So that we have to be that for each other, and nobody's going to be that for us in any way. Right. So you're right. A lot of our investors, and I'll go back to investor question, a lot of our large investors are not Black. They're not people of color. Right. And that's fine. We do have some people of color who've invested, and we just started a round of investment that we lowered the minimum amount down to like $250 to allow any person to be able to invest in our company. You don't have to be rich. You don't have to be wealthy. You don't have to be connected. You don't have to be a tech founder or tech savvy. We've made it so at this moment in time, right when we're scaling our company, we open a round so anybody can invest, right? $250 gets you in the game. You know, and that's what it is, right? So one of the reasons why we're doing it that way is because we did previous rounds. We did private equity, but the minimum were like 10,000, 25,000 for those rounds. We did, right now we're doing a crowdfunding round. To go back to the gentleman's point when he asked, how do we raise our money? We did crowdfunding, we did venture capital, and we also did private equity, right? And we were initially self-funded. So we have those different models of raising funding. So we have institutional investors and we have retail investors and everything in between. We have probably 220 plus investors right now, and 179 of them came from crowdfunding.
Wow.
But before we go too much further down the rabbit hole with this, I want to go back to something that you said that people might have missed. So let me reiterate it. If you notice when Steve said, hey, listen, I pulled the program, I put the images up, even though I'm frustrated. He's dealing with emotion. He wants to start a business. He wants to solve a problem, which is what most successful businesses do. They fill a gap. They solve a problem, a loophole, right? But he said it wasn't ready. You see, it wasn't ready. Now, he could have let his ego take the bet, get the better of him and put it out anyway and put out an inferior product and then wondered why nobody wanted to deal with it because it wasn't industry standard. He knew what he had to go up against. So instead of putting out an inferior product, he said, okay, this was a good scaffold. There was a good framework. Let's keep building on this thing until we can release it where we can feel comfortable that now when we release this thing, it can stand up and it can go against the industry standard out there. That's a very important message, Steve. I think for a lot of us, it's the battle between frustration, wanting to do something, and then knowing how to actually get your thoughts out and fully curate this thing so that it's a product that people can say, I am comfortable purchasing this thing, right? Yeah. Because this is a battle that we have with a lot of our own culture, right? We think that, oh, if I do something, I just slap a label on it or I slap a logo on it, something, and I'm black or I'm brown, you should support me just because. No, that's not true. That's not true, right?
Wait, can I stop you right
Come
there?
on, jump in.
Back to what Steve just said. We got to give each other grace. What if that was the first iteration of the shirt? Yeah. Right? Like, so now if we don't buy the shit and be like, yo, that's an inferior product, then he don't get to iteration or she don't get to iteration 4 or 5. That's fucking Nike.
So that's the point right there. So version 1 of Pocstock, if I put it out that way, it would not have been what it is today because it wasn't ready to go.
Yeah.
But what you're talking about is how I try to be with people, which is sometimes we're first-time entrepreneurs. So we don't have access to resources. We don't have the knowledge yet. We have the burning passion to do something. I like to cook. I want to open a restaurant, not knowing that most restaurants fail within the first 2 years. 80% fail within the first 2 years, right? And most of the times, if you're a successful restaurateur, you're not necessarily going to be the cook anymore. You're going to be running the restaurant. Right. So if you like to cook, you may want to go work at a restaurant versus starting a restaurant. But people want to, go through that process because that's the entrepreneur and the sort of pulling them into action. But yeah, I try not to write people off for their first mistake. If they're open to feedback, I might say pull them aside and say, hey, you know what? I had a bad experience with this. There was a person who I gave 3 chances to get something right, and it wasn't. We weren't on the same excellence level or even timing. And I'm like, we can't work together. Like, not on this. This is consequential. It's something that's important. I'm trying to give someone a shot. 2, 3 strikes, and it's like it's not a good fit. But I provide feedback. I say, this is how the bigger players do it. You may need to do this differently, that differently. And I would love in my early days, somebody to give me that guidance to say, but I observe life and I pick up things really quickly, but we have to give each other that feedback before we write them off. You don't have to support somebody just because they're black, but you should give them a shot because they're black, right? Everyone, every economist is predicting by 2053, we're going to be at net zero wealth.
Right.
That means black community, all of our wealth is going to be gone. The only ways we can build wealth, home ownership, business ownership, and maybe if there's some kind of stock market boom that we're a part of, right? But wealth is going to be built over the next few years by us. If not, it's not going to be built at all, right? We're going to be just be earning and putting everything out into into the economy without any sort of benefit. We're not going to be able to pass anything down. We're not going to have anything in 20 more years. And that's scary for me.
I just want to say this so that my message is clear. When I talk about taking the preparation to release a product, obviously, no matter what you release, doesn't matter what it is, it can never be the best iteration of, it's the first iteration. It can never be the best, but there is a big difference when you see somebody and they put out a product that shows they took time, they did research, you understand what I'm saying? And they put out a product that is the best that they had in the moment. Now with that feedback, they can better the product versus somebody that just threw something together and assumed that just because, you know, they're from the Black or brown community, you should support it. That's what I'm talking about, right? And I'll give like, let's just say like perfect examples, right? Let's say like Sylvia's, you understand what I'm saying? Like, she knew that she had a great product of food, right? Food, because she had so much feedback of the community first before she opened up the restaurant, right? She was doing this already and she got the feedback. Hey, I like this. I don't really like that. Maybe you should try this with your seed. And she developed it and then opened up the restaurant. Now, restaurants do fail, right? And she took a chance on it, but she already had so much feedback, right? First party data. And she had a product, at least at that moment, that she knew at least a certain amount of people enjoyed, right? And then she developed it. And it took years for her, between her opening up the restaurant, to be able to put her product on shelves, right? And in my opinion, it changed once you went to shelves versus when it was in the restaurant. But what I'm saying is, at least she, now you understand what I'm saying, had that feedback and she tried it, versus somebody that just goes to a barbecue. You know, you do one barbecue, somebody say your burgers is good, and next week you out there selling burgers. You know what I'm saying? Wait, hear me out, Jarrett, don't hear me out. You out there selling burgers, right? You out there selling burgers, but guess what? You don't at least give people the ingredients in your hamburgers, right? You don't tell people how, hey, if you have allergies, you know, you might not eat this burger because this is what it contains. See, we're in a different era, Steve. Back in the day, that type of just like nonchalant or quick to market strategy would have been a great excuse. But with YouTube University, with YouTube, forget college. With YouTube University and the power of Google, I'm not saying you can become a master, but if you actually sit down and take the time to do some type of research, you would be surprised how many free websites and free information is out there that will help teach you how to develop this thing and bring it to market in a acceptable manner where you can say, I am comfortable putting this out there, and now we're ready for the first round of. And that's what I'm saying.
Life be life, and sometimes I got to go to market today to pay rent tomorrow.
Listen, sometimes you got to pay rent if they sell it. And then you can make it better. Sometimes you just got to make it exist, and then you can make it better.
Yeah, I'm an MVP kind of guy myself. I believe in building small and then building up. But you know, to Chad's point, the impatience sometimes to get to market first is sometimes the thing that kills, especially if you didn't do your research, you don't have you don't have the funding, you don't have the experience, you don't have the knowledge, you didn't do any internships, you don't have any mentors, you know. And there is, like you said, I said this to an entrepreneur class a couple of weeks ago, ChatGPT, the best research tool right now.
There you go.
Just do research. Hey, tell me who are my 10 top competitors.
Here we go.
Tell me what business documents I need. Tell me, like, go to ChatGPT and ask questions.
Here we go.
Right? And there's no reason why we can't launch a business and be prepared for it to be successful. A lot of people are prepared for failure, but they're not prepared for success.
Message.
There you go.
Think about that. Think about that. Think about that.
We got big sis in the building.
There we go.
Natalie. Above.
I had to bomb. I'm like, how could you be here and not bomb this show?
I love it. You're the one who brought this all together, so it's full circle. I love it. When they said you have a special guest coming, I didn't know who you were talking about, but I'm pleasantly surprised. The glue that holds everything together. So we appreciate it.
I try and be a little bit of glue, connect some dots, make some things.
Well, I never asked y'all this. How did you two meet?
We got introduced by Rosa Nunez.
At a conference, right?
At a conference.
Yeah.
At Color Conference. Yep.
Yeah.
That's how we met.
Yeah.
And in California, right? We met in California, or we met in
I didn't go to Ad Color. I think it was in Florida.
It was in Florida. So that's how we met.
In Florida, yeah.
And we just hit it off, and we were talking, and then, you know, stayed in touch. And a few years later, he's like, I got an idea. I got a thing. I think you could do something. And I'm like, all right, what are we doing?
Everyone I work with has that same thing. I'm famous for calling somebody and say, hey, I got this thing. Whatever you're doing now, wrap it up in the next 60 days because I'm going to need you. So
I've been a little useful. I've been hanging out, doing some things.
Absolutely.
They're like kind of like ramping really this year. So watch out. Watch out. There's a lot coming. And I caught some of the show. I kind of tagged in late. But I think that what makes this magical is having someone with vision, being able to tap into the vision and then work with it. And I think when you were talking about people working together and Black people supporting each other, it's a thing. Like, you know, that colonialism digs deep. And so we forget, you know, that arrow of like separate them and keep them separate. And when we just need to remember to come together, because we could, you know, $1 trillion, right, Steve?
Yeah.
So we don't need the rest of the world. We could just do it ourselves and have everything accounted for. Automotive,
and
you know.
Yeah, and I do think historically there's been several Black communities have tried, you know, the Tulsa, you know, like Black Wall Streets and Rosewood and Greenwood. All these places have tried to have their own self-contained spaces. And I think we need to find a way. Globalization is what it is. So having a self-contained space is not necessarily going to be the way it shows up in 2025. We got to be able to deal with other communities, other places, and obviously different groups of people bring different things to the table. So you don't want to be closed off, but we can find ways to patronize each other's businesses. You know, if you can afford $25 a month, just go somewhere, patronize a restaurant, buy a book, go to an online store, buy something don't make everything about you. Make it about us. And you'll see how you can add impact. Don't make it about you. I don't need that book. I don't need that shea butter. I don't need that blah, blah, blah. It's not about you. I give them away as gifts, but you know, I make sure to buy it so that you have a sale, and that sale might help you to take your kid to private school or to college or to move into that house or whatever. Does it have something to do with me personally? No, but the more of us that are doing better, the more of us can do better, right?
Message.
So that.
What was the first big brand? Matter of fact, I want to ask you. I asked you earlier. I think we touched on it. What was the toughest obstacle you faced in growing the business? Right? Because we always talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, and the one thing we say is don't quit, right? But there's always several moments when you're about to quit. What was that moment for you that you kept going and kept the vision?
It was right before he made the phone call to me.
Yeah.
That was the moment.
Look at divine timing.
What's wrong with you? Get back in here. Let's
go. I'll say this. And we were talking about investment earlier, and that the reason why we're doing the crowdfunding is to give people access to investment. I did not grow up around wealth. I always say proximity to wealth, right? So there are people who grow up around rich people. There are people who grow up around people who just, if you say I have a new venture, the Bezos of the world, where their parents will give you $300,000 for this new idea you have, right? We don't generally have that. Some of us now are getting in a space where we have that, but historically we have not had that as a community. And not growing up around that, one of the biggest challenges for me was to then develop a different outlook on money, have a different relationship with money, have a different outlook on wealth and where it is and how you access it. That was one of the biggest learning curves, because I'm not necessarily a person that lives to make more money for myself. Like I'm very simple. I have about 5 pairs of sneakers. I have a couple of pairs. Like if I could wear the same exact thing every day and not have to worry about my outfits, and if I could eat the same, like that's me. I don't think about those things in that way. And I'm not
One less thing on
I need a little bit more 5 pair of sneakers, Steve. I ain't trying to cut you out. I need a little bit more than 5 pairs.
and that's fine. And that's fine.
Dad's closet is all I got to say.
I need at least 7.
But I would say that having a different outlook on money and where I put it and so I was raised to make money. I was raised to work and exchange my time for money. People I'm around take money and they make money so they can buy their time back, right? So now they have more. So now they have more. You're killing me, bro. So you have more time to spend on the things that matter. Traveling with your family, wellness, fitness. Enjoying your life, giving back, doing those things, because now your money's out making money for you, so you have your time, which is the only commodity that matters. Right. So that's the only thing that you can't buy more of. That's the only thing that all of us have a finite amount of, right? There's trillions and trillions of dollars of money out there. And I actually now have access to people with ridiculous amounts of money. And growing up, I never knew that some of them are Black. Like there are Black people who are well off. Not they didn't have to hit it rich in their lifetime. Their parents were wealthy and they passed it on. So just having a different outlook on money and people's relationship to it, how much is out there, how to access it, like that was one of the biggest learning curves for me. And in terms of things to overcome, I've long overcome it, but that was one of the biggest, steepest things I had to think about, getting better at. And I did a lot of research. I had a lot of conversations. I asked a lot of questions. I'm very intellectually curious. I hang out with people who are very much further than me financially, so I can learn from them and not have to learn everything the hard way. And, but yeah, that was one of the biggest things. I wouldn't consider it a setback per se, but it's something that it took me a lot of effort a hurdle to get over,
I love it. So we talked about y'all's past. I want to know what's the future of Pocstock? Like, what's next? Where are some things going? Like, give us the tea. What's the plans
to the moon?
Change makers.
I hope you got a world domination.
Refacing the future. Refacing the future.
Refacing the future. Yeah. So, a lot of what we're working on now is future facing in terms of AI. Working a lot with AI companies. We're working so if you think about every major tech boom that's ever happened, where people that look like us are not usually the ones who are the beneficiaries of all that wealth that gets generated, right? So $7 trillion in global GDP is expected to be added by AI in the next 10 years, 7 trillion. If we don't if we don't have equity in that early on, then none of that wealth goes into our community. So what we're tapping into at Pocstock is the data portion of it. So every AI platform in the world relies on data. We have a specific niche of data that we're providing to these companies, which is hard to find. Only a handful of people can curate this kind of content. Out of the stock companies that are out there, we're the only ones who took the time to. So now we have our own lane in the data aspect of AI. And now we're inviting people to own equity in Pocstock as we do this. So it's like, it's crazy. It's crazy.
But big bro, I gotta ask you a question, right? The data is the most important thing that's funneling and feeding the AI, right? That's making billions of dollars. How do you price that? How do you put a price on something like that that's important to the culture and making impact?
How do you price it? So in some ways, the market sets the price.
Okay.
Right. So there are market standards for what a piece, so let's say you have a company, a video production company, a photography company, and you have terabytes of content just sitting on hard drives.
Uh-huh.
We can help you monetize that content. Right. So we can help you monetize that content. Then at the same time, as we grow, if you're an investor in Pocstock, as we grow, your investment grows, right? Because we're now one of the only companies providing this to all these AI companies. So as we bring in more content, we're curating that content, we're putting it through our patented process. And I say patented with quotes because, it is our own proprietary process. Yes, and then we send it out, and then they're able to train their AI platforms on the data and the content that we provide. But yeah, so we're helping more of us get into AI just by virtue of being connected to Pocstock, either as a creator in our network or as an investor. Either way, we want all of us to benefit.
I got to piggyback that. So I understand that, but let's talk about the representation value of that, right? You just said before that, hey, I don't want, we can look at this screen and see people C-suite. Okay, so now how does a person that would like to be represented? Because I ain't gonna lie. Listen, I am black. Before y'all get all bent out of fucking shape, I am black and Latin. So shut up. But I'm tired of always seeing like the same imagery of black representation, even in like commercials. It's like the black kid or the black kid with the curly hair, the mixed kid, you know what I'm saying? Like we all don't look like that. You understand? So how does a person that not only wants to monetize, like, okay, say I want to invest in Pocstock, but how do you get your images? How does a person say, hey, I would love to be a representation of my own culture, right? How do I get involved with take a picture of me, take a picture of Cuzzo, take a picture of Nadege? How do we get involved with becoming the representation? What does that process look like? And then tie it into, now how do we monetize from that as being part of the imagery?
Yeah, why not? Why not do it all, right? So you can just go to Pocstock and sign up as a model. Like we just did this dope campaign with this ad agency out in LA. Where they were just easy now.
I'm boiling up and I'm going to Pocstock like the beach is that away.
Oh, facts. But yeah, we just did this campaign with this ad agency out in LA, and they found that there was a shortage of black surfers, images of black surfers.
Okay.
Right. So when they went to AI and they're looking for surfers, all the surfers presented as white, right? And they couldn't find any black surfers to get generated. And when they did, they would generate a white surfer with darker skin tone, right? None of our features. So we just did a campaign to address those biases in the data. When you look for surfers, it's biased towards white males. Right. So now we did female surfers, we did, black surfers, we did Hispanic skaters. And like, there's so many gaps and so many biases. And part of it is just how AI is built. AI is built to be right. It wants a high probability of being right. So it goes with whatever is common. Right. So if it knows that surfers are commonly shown as white, it's always going to show a white surfer unless you ask it for something else. Right. So we just want to balance it out to make sure that it's still common to show a black surfer. It's that we surf, we hike, we camp, we do all those things. We just want to make it more common, commonly seen. So yeah, if anybody wants to be a part of this project and data and just go to Pocstock, sign up as a model. We're always looking for more people.
Cuz we signing up as soon as this interview is over right now.
Sign up, come by the studio, get your pictures taken.
Natalie, the question is, how much imagery do you got of black men in a size medium?
We need to increase the medium representation.
Oh, no. We need it all. We need it all. Chad, you are out of your damn mind.
I do got a question.
It's important. No. You got it. There's a real big importance, because if you don't change, this is the deal. If you don't change what you're seeing, bottom line, you will never change the boardroom. You will never change the corner. You will never change the perception the police officer has of you, or you have of the police officer.
Right.
because that dynamic that gets circulated all the time and the stereotypes, that's what causes a lot of the mindset that causes the conflict. And then we're crying at the TV going, oh no. So it's important to feed the data. It's important to get as many images of everybody. And we were talking about Black people because we happen to be Black, but Asian people, Latin people, everyone needs to be in the data set. So that representation of a Korean woman ice skating is not an anomaly. It's a norm.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I think about too, and I don't want to, I want to say this, what the impact that we want to have down the line in the future is once we do this work, and this is beyond us and beyond, it could be beyond our lifetime or later in our lifetime, but at some point, AI is going to be in the operating room making decisions on the treatment for a Black woman, right? It's going to be in a courtroom making, sentencing recommendations for a young Black man who's a first-time offender. It's going to look at the history of how this country has treated Black men and make a determination that I want to be right. So this is how we've always done it. So if we don't do this work now, then those outcomes are going to be worse than the outcomes that we've been living through for the past X amount of decades. Right? Because when people think of artificial intelligence, they think it's actually smart. They don't think of it as it's been trained to repeat what it's learned. They think it's actually thinking and smart, so they trust the results. Even when you go to ChatGPT and others, people trust those results as if it's fact because it came. Even with Google, people trust the Google results and what they see on social media as if it's fact. But if you knew how low some of the probability models are for AI, if you give it certain inputs, it's sometimes 10, 20, 30% accurate. And they're still allowed to be out there giving results, even though it's that low in terms of accuracy. So imagine an AI being 30% accurate when it's telling a doctor what level of medication to prescribe to a patient at 20, 30% accuracy in its results. Like, it's all about data.
That's so real. Shit, I just had the question too. I just had it. Matter of fact, I wanted to ask you, damn, I just had it and I lost it. I had it and I lost it, but I had a good question. I was thinking about damn, I could go so many different areas with you. When I got this, I had the question. I literally just.
So I'm gonna ask my standard question. So I always say, right, you should never pour from your cup. You should only pour from your saucer. So fill yourself up, let your cup runneth over, and pour that excess. Natalie, Steve, if you have something you want to share from your saucer that you can pour into our viewers, like that would be so amazing. And I'm going to say specifically to us young people, the Gen Zers who are, future entrepreneurs, founders, cultural change makers. What are some things, you can pour extra into them tonight?
Wow. Okay.
I like it.
I'm a habitual cup pourer. That's why. No, but I do think that when I think about Gen Z, it's very exciting in terms of how different Gen Z processes information than us Gen Xers, where you all grew up and don't know a time where there wasn't social media, where there wasn't this technology. And I see a lot of Gen Zers, starting these podcasts and making $1 million off of YouTube and do more of that, right? Don't feel that the old playbook, just because it's been that way for X amount of years, that's what you have to follow. You, Gen Z and Alpha and beyond, have the ability to really reshape our reality in a way that we can't even, like a lot of the older people, older generation, even before us, are going to try to hold on legacy, blow it up, reshape it in a way that makes sense for today. We live with a lot of legacy systems, a lot of legacy practices and traditions, and some of that stuff just needs to go away. And there's no one else going to do it other than Gen Z and younger, right? And I say, if you want to start a business, start it. You say that buses should have 8 wheels instead of 4. Build a bus with 8 wheels instead of 4 and push the boundaries of the system. We're moving into a space and time where things are just going to be dramatically different, and you all have the opportunity to shape it the way that you think it should be, because we're not going to be, it's not going to be our world. Don't build a new world for the old people. Build a new world for what's next. And you all have the ability to see things so differently. I have conversations with Gen Zers, and it's just like, wow, that's the way you process that. Like, that's the way you see that. Like, that's what you heard. Like, that's how you, and it, trying to see eye to eye, like it's mind opening in terms of, so I love it. I love it. I love it.
I was going to ask you what's one good impact? Like, first, before I even ask you the question, right? I want to say this conversation, I know we have it on time. This conversation resonated with me a lot, Steve. You are me, I am you, right? In corporate, right? This is why we came up with More Than a Title. I was the guy with the hat and the hoodie that came into the office. I was the guy that was told how to dress in corporate America in 20 years old. I'm with baggy pants and Pradas on. I'm thinking I'm fresh. And they looking at me like, yeah, you're getting the sales, but you can't get the promotion.
Right.
I was that guy. I was the guy that said, okay, cool. You want me to send 2,000 emails or make 2,000 cold calls. But then when I go home at night, I feel like I didn't do shit because I didn't get a booked meeting. Right. How do I be more efficient at work? How do I be more efficient with my energy? So when I come home, I feel like I accomplished something. So we went on LinkedIn. We created this thing. Went on LinkedIn with my hat and my hoodie, told who I was. That's how I met Natalie. That's how I met you guys. And that's what it was. And that's how we created this platform. That's how we get the people that we get like yourself. Because we went on it and did what we had to do and just went outside the box. Our company's named Outside the Box Digital. That's how real it is, right? So we live it, we breathe this shit, right? So I'm gonna say that resonated with me, and I'm just curious. My last question is, what is the impact? What is one story you could share with us that was the impact of what you guys do at Pocstock? That was like, this is exactly what it's for. It might not have been the biggest deal, but what was the best story that you had? It was like, I needed this, and it did this.
There's a lot of those moments, and which is I'm fortunate enough to have a few of those moments, but without disclosing anything too personal, it was someone who works for us in another country, and knowing that we send, payments and checks across the world, across 65 countries, and knowing that there are people who were able to then get married, buy a house, provide for their family because of the steady income that they get from Pocstock. And that to me that's everything. And I know that it's, if you run an international business, it's part of the game. But for me, knowing that people can tie back, my life is somehow better because I crossed paths with Pocstock and they did right by us. And it's wonderful. Like, I love it. I can't tell you how much that, like, it's everything for me.
I felt that. I could tell it's real. You could tell when somebody's BSing, but you could tell it's real. Like, I appreciate that answer. Yeah. You're on mute, Cuzzo.
Natalie, you kind of quiet. I know Nadege had asked a question about, pouring from the source, and Steve had answered it, but you didn't give an answer. You want to kind of chime in on that?
Yes.
Yeah, come on, Natalie.
Say that.
Hold on,
Yes.
Natalie. Don't act shy, Natalie. I know you, Natalie. I know you. Don't come on. Stop playing with me. Now we was in the land. We stop playing around. Come on now. Okay,
so
here we go.
This is what it is.
Yeah.
When you sit down at the table, open out your arms and make space for others.
Okay.
You complain that you're the only one in the room, but if you made space for somebody else to come in the room, you wouldn't be by yourself.
Okay.
This battle is not meant to be fought alone. You are not meant to be by yourself. You are meant to be with people. And if you want those people with you, open up your arms. Just like when you're in the movie theater, you go, hey, this is the seat. Here's your seat. Here's your seat. Here's your seat. Just open up your arms.
Right.
Let them in.
I respect that. I respect that.
I love that. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah.
Give him the real. I want to give Steve the story of how Natalie helped us.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
So we was at Revolt World, right?
Before we got to Revolt World.
Before we got to Revolt World, we're doing our business. We told you 3 years in. We're a year and a half in, Steve. And I don't know if I told you this story.
Mm-hmm.
The podcast was about to break up. The business was about to break up. Everything's about to break up. Like, real talk. And that's my brother. Love this dude. We got into some stuff. We had a client, boom, boom. Long story short, we do everything together. We in the Revolt World separately. Got a personal invite from the CEO of Revolt World. I just met now. We just met like a couple of months ago, and we was like, "Yeah, we down there. We're gonna go there. We're gonna do this." And we link up, and it just something didn't feel right. Something didn't feel right. I ended up calling my mentor at the time, Solomon, rest in peace. Right? Me and Natalie are in the car, and I'm like, I don't know how I'm gonna approach Chad because he's either we gonna finish this podcast shit, we're gonna see the shit through, or it's gonna be done. And we talked to Solomon. Solomon gave me the best game ever. And me and Natalie sitting in the car, waiting to go into the registration. And the game that Natalie gave me on top of Solomon, I was like, you know what? He told me Solomon gave us a story about basically his cousin stole like $200,000 worth of $200,000 from his business. He went to his cousin and said, you know what? I'm sorry for whatever I did that made you feel that way. And I still love you. That part of the story resonated with me. Because I was like, yo, I don't give a fuck about the business. That's my brother.
Right.
Fuck the money. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, how am I going to approach him? And what did we do, Natalie? I said, yo, we walking in the Revolt World. We like, yo, we see the motherfucker 20 minutes into it. We didn't even get a beer. We didn't get a drink. We didn't get nothing. 20 minutes, he's in a loud outfit. I'm like, there go Cuzzo from like a mile away. I see him. I see him right there, Natalie. You see his ass.
There you go.
I took the information that Nat and the advice that Natalie gave me and Solomon.
No.
I just walked up to him and gave him a hug. Said, I love you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't give a fuck about anything. I love you, man. We sat around, we pulled to the side, we had our conversation, about an hour conversation, and it was back to business. But without that moment, without that, Natalie was a part of something like nobody can say they was like, we was about to literally be some serious shit. And so I want to thank you, Natalie, for being who you are, for holding me down in that moment, because there was a moment that I was unsure of a lot of shit, and she held me down. We sitting there listening to Alicia Myers. I want to thank you. We in the car cruising in Atlanta. We just had a great time, and I just want to say I love you, sis. And that was a moment that was pivotal for the business, pivotal for the show, and you was there, and I'm glad that it was you there. I'm glad that Solomon was there, and that was a moment that we need to have, and we are here rocking a year and a half later after that moment today on this call. So that's real as hell.
Yeah, I mean, definitely get the, you know what I mean? And let me tell you, like, Natalie already knows. Like, she already knows. Like, Natalie, you know what type of time I was on. But Cuzzo's absolutely right. And, you know, I thank Natalie in the moment also for being that support system. Like you said, Steve, she is the glue. You know what I mean? She helped us have that conversation. But that leads me into what I was going to say to you. You being one of nine, right? It's not only about building with the community, but building within your family, right? Having family members or friends that you might have grown up with that might have looked out for you now that you're in corporate America and you want to kind of, like Natalie said, right? Yo, your seat is right here. Your seat is right here. You know, how has your experience been with trying to give people that are not only extended family, your village, but your actual blood, your brothers and sisters, opportunities and working with them? I just would love to know, you know, how you navigated that.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on who they are and what their skill sets are,
Okay.
you know, because, you know, early on, you know, in when you first start a business, you reach deep into your village and community, you play it close, you know, you might have a brother or sister who you might work with. And then when you get to a certain level, if that brother and sister did not raise to the same level, you got to get different people at different levels of your company. So, but, you know, I'm realistic with that. Like, I love to give, you know, I believe in nepotism. I love to give people opportunity, family, you know, friends, but it has to be, they have to be trainable. They have to be provide value to the business, because there's nothing, you can give people opportunities all day, but it has to be focused on excellence. Somebody can't show up late because they're your brother. They can't drop the ball because they're your cousin and your friend. Like, business has to be business at all times, and friendship and family. You know, I've had to fire family members in previous businesses if they did not, you know, manage the expectation. If they thought I was the same Steve at the Thanksgiving table as I am in the boardroom, in the conference table, you know, that it's not the same person. So as long as we can have a way to work together and make sure business is taken care of, and we can, you know, we don't bring it home. We're still family and friends offline. I'm good with it. I love giving opportunities, open up doors, but it's all about making sure you deliver on a certain level. Like,
and I'm going to add to that because I've worked with many friends, and I've had to, like, you have to talk to people. You genuinely have to talk with them, and you have to be frank, and you have to be honest. You don't have to be mean or nasty or bitter. Just like, this is the situation. And it's real. Like, even my son has worked on a couple of stuff with us at Pocstock, and he comes in, does what he can when he's freed up, and then he goes and does what he normally does because he's in production. So I've seen Steve's sons have been there. One is an intern right now working with us. I mean, as long as you can bring something to the table and we're communicating, it's going to be all good.
Oh, yeah.
I personally do not manage my own son because that's ridiculous. And I might give him off to Derek and other people on the team.
Yeah.
Because you also need to know your own limitations with dealing with your family members.
Facts.
Yeah.
That's a major key.
Yeah.
But they're good. And you have to remember what they're good at and not. So this is one thing I would say also as a piece of advice. Remember what people are good at, not what their flaws are. Because we are so busy, and this happens in business. We so busy keeping because I remember you used to do this when we were young, so I don't know if you belong here or not. Yeah. But that person has proven that they can do the work. So get out of their way. Yeah. As much as we have to get out of our own way, we have to get out of other people's way, which is much to what Steve was saying earlier too.
Which compounds what I said earlier, Steve, right? And to finish off the story, and just so you know, you have a full understanding, right? Like, Cuzzo had this podcast a year easily before I came on to the show. You understand what I'm saying? At that point, I had 3 other businesses that I was running. I had a fitness company, I had a construction company. I was doing very well for myself running businesses. You understand what I'm saying? When he came to me, the first thing I said to him was, I don't know shit about podcasting, bro. I don't even listen to what is a pod. I was open and honest. Like, I don't know none of that. You understand what I'm saying? I admitted my flaws and say, I'm not good at maybe what you want me to do, but I know how to run businesses. I'm good at starting businesses and this and this and that. So, but once again, is what we talked about, taking the time to learn and study, right? Yeah. I opened up my first couple of businesses and then went to school and got a business degree. So I opened them up and then studied business and then learned business and then said, okay, let me, refine this thing and be better at it. So, that goes part to what we talk about, right? It's not, he could have had anybody else come on and be his co-host, but he understood that I work a certain way, I live a certain way, I manage a certain way, and that, we're going to have bumps and bruises and disagreements, but he understands my work ethic and knows what I'm willing to do and what I'm not willing to do, right? But that's only because I put myself in the position for him to understand that. I did the work first.
Message. Same with Nadege. Same with Nadege. We talked about it off camera. That's how we identify Nadege.
Understand?
Trust me, there's a lot of people that be like, yo, now can we be honest? Nope. Nope. Absolutely not. You cannot. No. But you know what? You was putting in the work before you put yourself in the room, sis. Yeah. You put yourself in the room, you was asking the right questions, you did what you need to do, and it was a no-brainer for us. And look where we are now, sis. Like, that's just identifying that talent.
Yeah. This was a great episode. Again, I ain't gonna lie. Look, here's a fault, Steve. Steve. I normally start off the show and say phenomenal. I know, Natalie, I say phenomenal. I'm going through a lot, Steve. I wanted to quit yesterday. 2 days ago, I did quit. Secretly in my, this shit is over. But we kept going. Ladies and gentlemen, yet another phenomenal guest, Mr. Steve Jones. Natalie came on. Again, you've seen Natalie before. You've seen her hang out with me. We've had another fun. But look how Natalie jumped on to the show to support Steve. This is a perfect example of why we say G&T. This is the village, ladies and gentlemen. This is the support. This is what it looks like. So you ask why we go live twice a week, sometimes 3, sometimes 4, because we're going to continue to show you what support looks like. Steve talked about what it looks like for us not to be represented in a positive manner. This is why we do so many shows. This is why sometimes we do 2-hour, 3-hour shows, because we have to keep it in front of your face, because it's not a lot of us giving you this content. And we're scared that it's going to get whitewashed or washed out by all the negative content. But you need to see what support looks like. So Steve came on the show and he told you straight up, yo, listen, one of nine, right, Steve?
Absolutely.
1 of 9, right?
Facts.
Listen, 1 of 9, father wasn't in the household, and then eventually mother wasn't in the household, but he didn't let that become an excuse. You understand? He did what he had to do. He started working early. He got to it, right? A lot of us got to stop making excuses. He was intimate, and he let you know that his success wasn't linear. We didn't even talk about the music thing. Trust me, he's not getting away with it. I'm telling you right now, Steve thinks that he's getting away with it, but Steve, he's not getting away with it. I'm telling you in the back, we're going to throw something on later, and we're going to talk about this, because Steve, we're going to talk about that music thing. But you know, music, he was in companies, he did this, he did that. He wasn't afraid to chase his dreams. He wasn't afraid to pivot and say, okay, I did this, let me try this, let me try that, right? So this is why we keep preaching this thing, right? Success is not linear. You're gonna have ups, you're gonna have downs, right? He told you about his village. Listen, people took me in, they supported me. He told you he was married, his wife is supporting him, right? We cannot do this thing alone. It is enough room in this world for us to be successful, either collectively or in support of each other, which leads me to end off the way I always end it off. The dream is free.
But the hustle is sold separately, y'all. Y'all know what it is, man. We're gonna see y'all Thursday, man. Steve, Natalie, we love y'all. Y'all know.
Love y'all. More than who but us. And
What
stop
you know about me? Seen it all, heard it all. Oh, what you know about me?